these brands, these companies are using competitions instead to get cheap work, and that is why I've made this video. Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about illustration competitions and design competitions as well. Any competition that involves using your creative skills. I'm going to be talking about the concerns I have and giving a word of warning about some things to look out for. So my background, if you are new to this channel and you don't know who I am, I'm a freelance illustrator and I have been for 5 years full-time. So this is my industry and I'm very protective over it, and I want to hopefully remain in this industry for the rest of my life. Is the job I've always wanted to have. So what I really want to do with my channel is talk about these issues and raise awareness about them, I think, because I think there are so many instances where individuals are being exploited and our talents are being taken for granted, and we should try and work together to overcome this, basically, and appreciate ourselves and appreciate our skills and not be taken advantage of, which I know is very hard if you are new to the industry. It's very competitive and really hard to break into, I would know. It took me a long time to be able to quit my day job and become an illustrator, and it was really, really hard. And it still is hard sometimes. It's a very scary world, being freelance sometimes. But yeah, I hope that you learned something from this video, and let's get into it. Competitions tend to fall into two main categories. There's probably more than two, but the two main ones I've spotted, I'm going to be talking about one category more than the other. So the first category that you might have seen is the type of competition where you enter your work and it's judged by a panel, and then that might lead to being involved in an exhibition or an event or a book where your work is showcased, and maybe you might win an award for your area of expertise. I'm not going to be talking too much about these because I think sometimes they can be great. There are some really great competitions out there to find new talent, but I would be wary of those as well. I don't think I would ever pay myself to enter one of those competitions. I just think they're earning a lot of money from every single entry, and I just would be very wary about that in general. But obviously that's your decision to make. I'm going to stop talking about that because that's not the one that I have the most concern with. So the other type of competition, and the one that I've been seeing cropping up more and more over the past year or so, is where a company, a brand, a business are hoping to gather some new artwork and find some new illustrators or artists to fit a certain purpose, whether that be promoting one of their products or creating a social media campaign or making poster designs for an event or something like that. So it's kind of a search for new artwork, and there might be prizes involved here, there might be runners-up, there might even be cash prizes, which seem like it's worthwhile, but I would also be very cautious of that as well, and I'm going to explain why. So the main problems I have with these types of competitions, and I'm going to try and include examples where I can, is that often it's just spec work under the guise of a competition and a good opportunity. If you don't know what spec work is, it's something that's talked about in creative industries, because some clients will ask for you to do some free work before they decide whether to take you on for a particular project. A lot of established designers will tell you not to do that because your time is valuable and you shouldn't be giving away your time and your creative energy to companies that aren't necessarily going to pay you for that. And often competitions are very similar to this. You will have to spend time creating new artwork and then not necessarily be paid for your time. You might just be rejected, or you might appear on their website. I've seen some awful competitions where even if you enter and you don't win, the people that hold the competition own the rights to your work, which is obviously really worrying because you haven't been compensated for that. I wouldn't recommend anyone working on something for someone else without guaranteed payment, which is often what these competitions are. Next, I want to talk about the prizes that are offered, because sometimes they seem tempting. Sometimes they are seemingly a substantial amount of money, maybe £1,000 or £2,000 for the winner, maybe some runner-up prizes as well. Those tend to be the more higher profile competitions, and it's quite common for there not to be a cash prize at all. You might win a voucher, you might win simply exposure, which is obviously the worst word. I would look very closely at these prizes, and if they seem too good to be true, then they probably are. It's worthwhile looking at exactly what your artwork that you enter into these competitions will be used for. If it's going to be used in a big ad campaign by a big brand, then you should be paid a lot of money for that, because it's advertising, and advertising is a very highly paid section of the industry. But often the prizes won't reflect that, and I kind of feel like they're taking advantage of new illustrators or artists that don't have such a good grasp on pricing structures and will see that amount of money and think that it's really worthwhile, when in fact they're just getting really, really cheap artwork out of you. Next, I want to talk about the terms and conditions that are often hidden within the rules of the competition. When you enter these competitions, they'll usually have maybe like a link or a PDF file where you can read through all the legal jargon and information in relation to intellectual property and copyright and that sort of thing. So I would really be very cautious and definitely read all of the terms and conditions. I've seen so many eyebrow-raising terms hidden within these contracts that I think a lot of people just skim over, because if you're a new illustrator and you're not really used to reading contracts, or you've never seen one before, you might not know what to look for. So those are the main three issues, but I'm also going to talk about my personal issue with competitions and how it kind of devalues our industry and takes away some of the professionalism that is so important if you're trying to make a business in these particular areas. A good way of seeing that for yourself is applying these competitions to other professions. If you can imagine teachers having to compete to be able to teach certain classes by entering their teaching plan before every lesson and then being picked or not being picked. If you can imagine a plumber having to install boilers in lots of different people's houses and then being chosen or not being chosen and not necessarily being paid for the time he spent working on those boilers. As you can see, it's just a really unpredictable way to make a living, and it's really not sustainable if this starts happening more and more. The real worry I have is that I see very similar briefs that I've worked on as a professional illustrator now becoming competitions. I've seen magazines searching for new artists and illustrators by holding competitions, when really it's the job of the art director. That is their job, to be searching for new talent and contacting new talent and arranging a brief and a budget, and that level of professionalism is just so important, and competitions are just stripping that away. I think for new artists this might seem like it's the way it has to be and they should take every opportunity they can get, but I'm coming at it from the perspective of having earned my living in this industry for 5 years without entering a single competition, and with being treated with respect by my clients and having a contract that gives me security. I know I'm not giving away full rights to my work ever, and I know that I'm guaranteed payment, and just being treated like a professional rather than a competitor is really so important for the longevity of your career. I don't think we need to be competing to earn prizes, really. I think we should be treated with respect. I think we should be approached as professionals, like other professionals get to be, and I think we need to be stronger and saying no to things that undermine our talents, basically. So, what should you do if you see a competition that you're really tempted by and you think looks like a good opportunity for you? My first piece of advice would be to be really cynical and suspicious. And I don't know if this is just me getting older, but I am very, very cynical of things that look like amazing opportunities, because quite often you read into it more and you realise they are using language to make it seem like a really exciting, amazing opportunity when actually it's exploitation. Sorry to be the bringer of bad news about this. I'd be really thorough about reading the terms and conditions. I would look out for terms where your intellectual property is no longer yours and you're signing away full rights in perpetuity to the company that's holding the competition, because no illustrator should be signing contracts like that without ginormous payouts. So I would definitely find out what the scope of the project is, whether it's advertising, whether it's going to be a huge worldwide campaign, whether it's going to be in stores, whether it's going to be online, and work out whether the cash prize reflects that usage, because often it won't. I'd also say to value your time as a creative person. If you're being asked by this competition to create work for free with no guarantee of payment, then that is spec work, and that is something to be avoided, because time is money and you don't need to give your time up for no guarantee of payment. If you want to do work without payment, work on your own portfolio. That is something that cannot be stressed enough. Don't spend your time working for free for other companies. Work on your own portfolio until you reach a stage where they want to pay you and that you can start charging. If you are giving all your time up for companies, then they're going to see that they can save quite a lot of money by doing this, and then by the time you get to the stage where you have an established portfolio, you'll realise that the jobs aren't there anymore because these brands, these companies are using competitions instead to get cheap work. And that is my biggest fear, and that is why I've made this video. Last up, I would say to really question whether this competition is worth it for the supposed exposure that it will offer. I can remember back when I was a new illustrator, I did a few things for exposure. Quite honestly, the exposure is never as good as you expect it to be. You might be tagged once or twice on their social media feeds and you might get a couple hundred new followers, but that doesn't pay the bills, and in return you've had to give up a lot of your time and a lot of your creative energy, and they're going to be making money off of that, whereas you are not. So I can really see that it's tempting because it's a very hard industry to break into, and you might be really passionate about it and really desperate to start getting your work out there. But I think patience is very important. Having a really strong will is important, and understanding that you have the tools already to get that exposure. We're so lucky to be living in a time when we have social media. So yeah, those are my thoughts on competitions, and I'm sorry if I've been very negative in this video, but I just feel worried about the way things are headed sometimes. There are other issues as well where I feel like we're being taken advantage of, and I'm going to talk about that. For example, I recently got asked to work for free, to work in exchange for some suitcases by a really big, fast-growing company that has a lot of money, because I looked them up and I saw how much they're worth. They're saying they don't have a budget for illustrations. So I'm going to be making another follow-up video all about working for free and sharing my horror stories, and yeah, I'm also going to be doing a video about contracts, because I know that's something that's really hard to learn about. Leave any questions in the comments about this. So share your experiences about different competitions you've seen or you've entered. I'd love to hear what you think about all of this. I really hope that you found this video helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, because I make weekly videos about being an illustrator, and yeah, I'll see you again next week for a new video. Bye!